Welcome, everybody, to Gums and Gossip Podcast. I'm Hope. I'm your Gum Goddess podcaster. And we have another episode, which I'm super excited, talking more about fears, wellness, everything in between, your nervous system. Like I said, I'm Hope, and we have a special guest. And I'm excited to introduce Shalini Cameron. She is a somatic psychotherapist, a trauma therapist, and a nervous system educator based in West Yorkshire, UK. So she's coming from the UK, not Texas. And over the past years, Shalini's been weaving together her experience as a psychology teacher, a yoga teacher, and now psychotherapist alongside her own recoveries from full nervous system breakdowns to create healing courses and rituals that are digestible, beautiful, and practical. So her journey is very incredible. She was diagnosed, we'll talk about her functional neurological disorder, FND, and how she was told different options, and she can kind of share her story behind all that and different paths and understanding people. And now she helps women heal from chronic pain and trauma and long term stress. And she brings just a lovely embodiment and approaches science based and heart centered. So, of course, absolutely love this. Welcome, Shalini.
Thank you so much, Hope. That was a beautiful introduction. I feel really honored to be here.
Thank you. So, in this episode, I really wanted to explore how, like, the nervous system in the body. And this includes, your jaw, your teeth. I mean, it's your whole body experience of how your nerves are everywhere. I mean, it is like, and how our mindset, and how we can regulate our nervous system. And there's different rituals that, to feel safe and grounded, whether you're in the dental chair or you're, just everyday life. So I just really appreciate you being on the show. You've just, to me, we've talked prior, and it was such an inspiration. We met through an online kind of chat, and I always feel like I meet people for purpose and for different reasons, and we have a great connection. So you are definitely someone I'm going to be keeping in touch with, and but
So lovely.
but like healing others, and that's part of me. We were when we'll kind of start from the beginning of maybe share like how your story, your personal breakdown, maybe kind of go like who you are and your personal background of all this why.
Okay, so I, I stumbled across nervous system work because of my own breakdown. So I went through a series of chronic stress responses and difficulties in my life. And little did I know that all of this one day would have quite a profound effect. I'm very strong mentally, so I have this tough mudder approach of all is okay. Let me get on. And so I pretty much did that over the last, I would say, my whole life of 43 years, being in this constant state of survival mode. So being in this space of chronic stress and things that really overwhelmed my capacity to cope. So I would say I was living a lot in a fight or flight response. And things that I'd experienced as a child and growing up were things that I didn't realize were unconsciously triggering me to almost stay, or my nervous system was protecting me to stay extra vigilant and very aware because of the experiences that I'd had. It was only after probably about 10 years of accumulation of lots of little things that had happened in my life. These were things that included my divorce, my father very traumatically and suddenly passed away with quite a severe brain tumour, which had quite a significant effect on me. And just went through this whole unravelling of life's challenges to then land in this place where my nervous system, my system couldn't take any more, no matter how much I continued saying it's okay, I can crack on, and well, we'll just constantly live in this state of survival. And so it was actually around the period of 2020 when we were experiencing the COVID pandemic, which to me was another significant stressor in my life. At that time of my life, I was living alone with 2 children, and my anxiety went off the scale. Particularly with what we were being fed from a danger perspective, of globally, it was huge, and also from the element of safety, when we were not allowed to be with our family. It was like you had to just have your immediate kind of circle, and that separation. Now I know in nervous system polyvagal ventral vagal terms, we were removing all those accesses to safety. My system just, I was in a real sheer state of terror, I would say, because it wasn't just COVID. I just witnessed quite a violent burglary, actually, from my family, and amongst other things. And so I had this breakdown, and all I can describe is it was a neurological breakdown. I experienced symptoms which were really quite distressing and frightening. So I developed what was almost like an internal juddering in my body. So I could feel sort of this movement, which was, now I know, is like a low kind of movement disorder. It was almost like dystonia. And I would experience vibrations in my body, particularly around my head and neck. And what was interesting was, but quite frightening, was my long-term memory was really affected, and I couldn't recall specific details from my past. And I just felt this overwhelming fear that I was not safe. It was very difficult to describe. So I couldn't be on my own. I had to have family and friends stay over, and they were amazing. And the safest place for me, which I felt, was with other people, just because I didn't know what was happening within my body, which was the most distressing thing. And because it was the COVID pandemic, there were no
Nice, just to
answers.
interrupt a little bit, it's nice to have a support system, because a lot of people don't have a support system to be able to cope with, like, all their nervous system and everything too. Because and your feelings, the reason why I just love hearing your story, even though it's very stressful, traumatic and all, it just brings people a little bit of hope. It brings people like into, if somebody else can get through something, maybe it would be something for somebody to have, find a support system, find people that might be able to help instead of hurt. So continue on. I just thought I'd share that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm so, this is exactly why I do this work, because I was at a place where I was extremely helpless. There was no help, there was no access to help. And when I was knocking on the doors of the doctors, I was sadly misdiagnosed, from a neurologist who did his own assessment. I appreciate it was over the internet. So he diagnosed me with a condition called cervical dystonia. which is involuntary movements of the neck. And that was a trauma in itself, because when I started to research, there was a lot of debilitating side effects, but also from a community of people that were in this inescapable diagnosis. So that was the starting point for me. That was the turning point when I just got this diagnosis, and I felt so utterly helpless that I did my own research to get to the bottom of what was the cause of this, because something in my system knew that there was a way out of it. It was really quite difficult to describe. So that's
And
when I
you're
went.
spiritual, just to let everybody know, there's spiritualness in all this, with the story, because you have to rely on trust, and you have to, anytime you go into any kind of fear response, we're all human. We all have our, it's, there's always going to be some kind of, you have to trust your body, and you have to trust your mind that, maybe there's other things or different perceptions. But when you're in that moment, because I've had my nervous system almost shut down so many times, and what kept me going was my kids. I mean, it was like I just knew I had to, as a mom, I just had to be there for my kids. I didn't want
Mhm.
anything other than keeping them safe, protecting them, things like that. And if I wasn't there, I was thinking, oh my goodness, I- how am I going to, who's going to keep them safe?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I hear you, Hope. It was the one motivating incentive for me, was to somehow get myself out of this state that my body was in for my children.
Yeah. They
So
say to find one good thing. It's like even when people are in suicidal, or when their mindset, when things are just really rock bottom, which I've been rock bottom before too, it's either reaching out to somebody that maybe would listen, or creating, is it, a different mindset that this is temporary, or finding something that makes you happy. Go get an ice cream cone. I don't know, just something that would just jolt and make you be like, you know what? I'm sitting in this moment. And in this moment, maybe it's not so bad these 5 minutes. The other times, I want to go sit in my closet and suck my thumb, or whatever. Um, and it's okay. I think it's giving yourself permission, in my
yeah,
opinion, to be okay. And even in the
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And what you said there is just so spot on. So since I went on my own recovery, I then trained in sensory motor and somatic psychotherapy with nervous system therapies, and did a lot of work with Dr. Stephen Porges' Safe and Sound protocol, which is all about recovering that nerve that's related to healing and health and social engagement and connection. And since then, I set up a high street practice and worked with many clients and nervous systems and bodies that are in that fear response, as you talked about, whether that be in different contexts, but it's this sense of helplessness and hopelessness, and that it's permanent. It's a permanent state. Whereas actually, the fear response, just like the safety response and the healing response and the restorative response, is on a continuum. It doesn't mean we're in this fixed state. But at the time, and especially when we're chronically living in that state, it feels like there's no way out. But having learned the work of somatic psychotherapy and nervous system work on myself and then with others, I can 100% say there is a continuum. There is a way to go from that high level of distress and all those thoughts and feelings and emotions and the physiological response that happens in our body as a result is because that brain is so hijacked. It's living in fear. It's switched on that sympathetic nervous system, and it's saying, I've got to survive right now. I need to protect myself. But the way to untangle that and weave through these very gradual and almost subtle shifts, there is a way, and it takes time, it takes work, it takes understanding a new language, a language that we have not, unfortunately, been given. And that's one really big thing I'm massively passionate on sharing is now I've accumulated all of this knowledge and pockets of knowledge and wisdom. We've not had this in our education system, in our healthcare system, in the mental health system. The language of understanding the science of safety and the embodiment of safety, that language, once you understand it and you learn it and how it works, that's the beginning of the journey of awareness and shifts and change and regulation and embodiment. And as I said, it's not something that happens by any means overnight or in a quick fix. This is not your quick fix therapy, which we very quickly want for that cognition. What can I get right now? What do I need to know? How can I get out of this as quickly as possible?
What do you think about, I'm going to pick your brain here for a minute, with the social media? Social media has also caused where people have, comparison, they're trying to like live the lives and they're stressed out about what other people are doing and they don't want to have fear of missing out. And there's like, or this person's having, the best party and I'm sitting at home or whatever. What do you think about how social media has?
I, it's worrying. It's worrying, and it's scary, particularly for our young people. We've had this whole paradigm shift 360 now into social media, into the digital area, into technology, but in particular the the evolving and the growth of young people with the use of social media and that comparison, and as you said, the missing out. It's very, very, very scary because at such a young age as well. And I know that around our 20s and around that sort of development stage, as young in-depth psychology talks about, that it's a very egocentral, it's a very kind of selfish time because we are thinking about ourselves, we are thinking about the ego, we are thinking about what makes us feel good, potentially on a superficial basis. So there's that kind of striving for comparison and to belonging and social identity as well around at that time is very, very important to a young person. So social media plays a big part.
No. Even
But if
the grooming, it just, so I'll see kids walking down the street, and they're like 2 years old and they have mom's phone and, they're like, they just are so confident and they're so, it's almost like not a reality. And it is, parents allow that because that's just one of the things. It's like, oh, they have their own time, their own, so it's like, oh, they can have their phone and do whatever they want. No, it's cute. Maybe we'll get enough likes or we'll do that. But it can be, can it not? It can be detrimental to in the long term effect because, like you said, their brains don't develop until a later point. And so, even with AI, they're relying on other sources that takes their brain out of the whole picture, right?
Absolutely. And all I can suggest it as a mother as well to a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old, it's a critical time is to is to question. I say question everything. Question everything. Whatever we're being told, whatever we're being fed back with, whether that be AI, social media, anything, it's part of our development is to really think about things and to have our own opinion and our own voice, and that nothing is actually right or wrong just because something says this is right or wrong. It's a rendered, without going into it too deep, I almost see it's like a rendered reality. If that's the reality we're creating, then it's real for it. Then it's real in that context, but it doesn't mean it's real if it's not if it's if your brain or part of your brain is can be held with boundaries and resilience and developing your own choice and autonomy.
I was listening to this. This is funny. On the way into the studio, I was listening to this thing on the radio, and they were talking about the AI world. And this is it's I think it's a little controversial because um, you can go do Pilates, right? And you can have the experience and do all that. Or you can create your own AI bot and post that you were doing Pilates and show, all these things. Like it's not really you, but you feel like in your head, oh, I must have done Pilates. And so there was like this big thing about how something like that, even long term, of the reality is you didn't do Pilates. I mean, but you
Hmm.
posted and everybody thinks, "Oh my goodness, you're just doing all these things." So that's happening too.
Hmm. Oh, I mean, we can Photoshop that we're in all these amazing countries, and as you say, we're doing all these things, and we're now at the point with AI where we can create videos and a clone of us that's almost working, doing a completely different job than what we're doing kind of over here. And, I suppose there is an element of it's useful, it's helpful, it has its place, but I think developing that flexibility to be able to hold that there and its use and its strengths, but also to hold yourself separately so that you can not be 100% reliant and base your whole life and identity and choices and beliefs and your sense of self on the new world that's taking off. We don't want to lose the fact that we all have got this innate capacity and ability and to develop a sense of self. So there's a great book by Carl Rogers, and it's called On Becoming a Person. He talks about the self-actualizing tendency that we all have within us as human beings, this innate tendency to grow into our full potential from that acorn to the oak tree. It's within us, and that's the natural intelligence of plants and animals and nature and our systems. So let's not lose that to this. You know, keep keep a part of that to explore that and grow that. And that's with that mindful awareness, somatic embodiment, feeling grounded, connecting with oneself and connecting with the environment that's not digital, you know.
Like I said, you're always so inspiring. Like all these little nuggets that you always have, shared. I think it's when you're going through things, because I've gone through with my own nervous system, in survival mode, and I'm constantly, it's like ebb and flow where it just you have moments of survival mode, even now, you know, just to um, do and just to know that you're okay, you know, that you have to keep reassuring, you know, you're going to be okay. I guess that would be something. But talk about a little bit about breathing. I know you also did yoga, you were a yoga teacher. Talk about some things maybe people could do. They experience these moments in of the nervous system. What is something that would help?
So, do you want me to talk about that in the context of being in that dental chair, Hope, or just in general at this point?
In general, and then I can talk about fear.
We, yeah, I mean, we are human beings that are designed to thrive and be in survival mode. We have challenges, and we're designed to experience stresses and curveballs. We can't get away from that. We focus so much on this idea of being calm, and that the end goal is about being calm as a state, but it's just not humanly possible to live in a state of calm all our life. So survival state, is very essential, as is the calming state. But the goal really is being able to come out of survival state, as you said, and being able to be in that control of being able to come out of survival. Because when we're not aware and we're living in this kind of reactive survival stress mode, we can we want to rest, we want to sit down, we want to just feel that moment of relaxation. But what can happen is people can't access that. It's too difficult for them to rest. The moment they sit down, they feel that irritability, like they're just kind of stuck on that hyperarousal. And that's saying that your body's in control rather than you being in control of your body. So it, embodying safety and self-awareness is the first step to start to shift and come out of survival mode. And it as I said, it takes work and it takes micro resources. But if you do them little and often, and if you make time for them as well, in potentially a mind and body practice. So yoga, certain types of yoga that involve the breath with the movement. And if there's ever a yoga class around you that there's some breath techniques and there's some kind of focus on the exhalation with the movement, then that's a good class to go to, because you're starting to develop that internal awareness and sensation, and also you're starting to hack into your vagus nerve, switch on the rest and repair, and use breath with mindful movement to bring your system down. If that's not comfortable or it's not familiar, people do worry about going to a yoga class, because it's the idea that, you hear people say, I do yoga. And it's not a do. It's like it's a practice. It's a practice. If you're going to learn to ride a bike or learn a musical instrument, it's not something I'm going to go and do. It's something you're going to practice. And it takes learning, it takes listening to teachers, it takes practice, it takes making mistakes, but that's all part of the
And
learning process.
listening to your body too. Like, what's your body saying to you? You know, do you really, you know, because I mean, there were moments sometimes when I did yoga and I had tears that would just come out of my eyes. For no, I mean, you just the way you experience things. I mean, it was like you have your moments, I don't know what it was that triggered it, you know, but it's like, you know, at the end and you have lavender or whatever, and it's like,
Absolutely. It's interesting because when I don't teach yoga now, I will incorporate yoga into the therapeutic work. But when I was teaching classes, and personally and professionally as well, it was very normal to see women having emotional experiences. and there were tears. But thinking about the wisdom and intelligence and the language of your nervous system, if your nervous system is feeling in co-regulation, which is another form of safety. So if there's safe people around you and you have another calming nervous system that's around you or in front of you facilitating, that's that instant, I'm safe. There's someone here to regulate me right now. So the co-regulation is a big element of embodying safety. And then when you start to release tension and you start to explore interoception, so that internal awareness with your body, you are almost evoking unconscious, well, you're tapping into your implicit memory, because we have, this is crazy. We think we have more memory in our brain. We have more memory in our body and our nervous system than we do in our brain. And that memory is what we call implicit memory. It's something that you can't access, you're not aware of. That's what we call the subconscious. I drift off. Sorry, Hope, but there's a great.
No, I think that's a great thing to do, because I think even the generational, I say the generational curses of what has been put on our bodies and our expectations. And me personally, I'll say growing up, I mean, there were just so many triggers, that I didn't realize that I took with me into adulthood. And I've shared that I'm an empath, and so I tend to, especially with my patients and even in the chair, I absorb things, and I've really had to learn how to release it, because it can bring anxiety to me. And then if I'm sharing anxiety, then others are anxious. It's like it's a spiral thing. So if you're not, sometimes you feel like, even as a single mom, if I wasn't strong enough, to, but you always, in the back of my mind, even today, it's like you just want someone to take something off your plate.
Mm,
And but some people can't handle that. Like, we can handle so much when you've been through so much and your body knows kind of what things are. You just become more aware. And I think awareness is one of the things, you were talking with breathing, even in the dental chair, making sure that your wellness from your mind to your body, you're trying, you're not perfect, but you're making choices that affect you 5 years down the road, that can do, and I believe truly in helping others, and giving heart to others. And so there's I've really had to learn that there's other people like yourself out there that do that too. I never had that. It didn't feel like that, because personally, I didn't feel worthy. I never felt like I was good enough. And even doing as many things as people said, gosh, Hope, you're so strong. How are you so strong? You've handled so many things. People haven't seen all the things, you know what you've experienced, and they haven't seen the things that you've seen. Even my own kids, they have no idea, and not that they should, the things that you've experienced in life. And it's coping with those things, having people like yourself that help, and managing your stress.
mm, absolutely. You know, when you haven't had regulation as a child, and I hear you, it's something that I didn't have as a child. But regulation, somebody who's regulated, whether that's a regulated parent in the form of that attuned, present caregiver that can help. As children, we're born with dysregulation. Our brains are naturally dysregulated. Gabor Mate talks about it a lot, how a child, the only way a child knows how to ask, a baby knows how to ask, is to cry. That cry is a form of communication, and the baby wants regulation. The baby wants to be held and soothed because that's that instant message to the amygdala that says, I'm safe. That's sitting in that lower part of the brain. The feeling of safety means it's a feeling of regulation as well. And so if we haven't had that as we've grown up, we have to be so kind to ourselves in terms of we're living with a system that's dysregulated because of our lived experience and our own trauma and stress. And to be able to then regulate our own children is that's a really big ask from a system that's already dysregulated. But it's possible. It's possible to do the work, to learn how to come out of survival state, to learn how to regulate, and then be as regulated in pockets as we can for our children, you know? And just that willingness and that presence of being with our children is, I can't tell you, it speaks volumes more than words to the brain. It will speak to the that part in the brain, am I safe and am I loved? That's the part there that forms everything with our nervous system in terms of health, emotional health, physical health, physiological health, resilience. It's coming from those two places, you know?
Exactly, exactly. So I'll kind of go back into the dental chair. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I would have a patient, that would come in, they're all sweaty. I was just proud of them for being there. That was like the first step of just saying, "Hey, I need help." And so anybody who would come in the chair and all that, there were times I didn't actually do any treatment. We would just talk. And to a dentist, that's like, "Oh my goodness, you have to make money, right?" And all that. But when you're building a relationship and and this is such, even referrals and things, people knew who I was. It wasn't like somebody would come in the chair, a lot of times I didn't even know who the dentist was. They'd just be like, "Oh, we want to see Hope," right? And I'm like, "I'm not a dentist." you know but it's a lot of psychology that to be have someone in the chair and is gaining the knowledge of how to treat others. Some people don't have that gift, and maybe they shouldn't be in healthcare if it's just a job where they're just having money or whatever it is. It should be something that comes naturally to you, that you feel passionate about, and in helping others. And so, because that helps your mindset, where your nervous system can be okay as well, because like I said, we feed off of each other. So I've had patients cry in the chair and they'd say, so sorry, like maybe they had a death in the family, maybe they were coming from abusive relationship, maybe they were coming, you don't know where anybody has come from.
Mm-hmm.
And every generation has its own dental experiences where maybe they were forced to be in the chair, and they were traumatized. And just my capability of helping others, it goes beyond the dental chair. And that's why we're here, is to discuss things and to talk about things and have people on, especially like yourself, with nervous system and help, um, because we're human and we're allowed to be human,
Yeah.
and learn from each other. And I think that's one of the biggest takes of everything, is learning, that we're all individuals, but we can work together, and it's finding your people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know,
So tell me about, like, daily. I know we talked about the daily practices. I think women, we could go on and on about different things, and we'll probably have another episode to kind of talk about more about the nervous system. But finding balance, you've come a long way. You've had your journey. Now you're helping others. You're designing things too. You have lots in the works, like me, where I'm designing a dental fear assessment and helping communicate with, the dentist and the patient, and help with that fear space. But you're designing some things too. Talk about all your things that you're doing.
So I'm currently designing a program that is a somatic healing 5-step program. So this is designed for anyone that wants to go on the journey. My mission is to make this as accessible as possible, because therapy is expensive in itself, and then somatic therapy is a specialist area in its own. And I truly believe that education and empowerment and that autonomy, empowering individuals to go on their journey, it's so powerful, and it's available, it's there. So I've just finished developing my first course, which is the beginning of the program, and that's the essential foundations. It's the missing map. So it's the piece that's been missing from the doctors, from the healthcare system, from the mental health system. And it brings together Dr. Stephen Porges' work on polyvagal theory, that our nervous system is this incredibly intelligent and wise system of its own. So you learn essentially the map so that you can go on your journey. You learn about these survival states that we've talked about and what they actually do in your body and in your system, what is actually going on. And it kind of confirms why we feel the way we feel and why we're behaving the way we are, so that people aren't stuck, so that it makes sense and it's human. It's a normal response to how our system is protecting us and keeping us safe. And then I also break down the 3 different types of trauma and how they impact the nervous system as well, because different types of trauma will have a different effect. So essentially, you've got the imprints of your map to then go on your journey, and you know what's happening. So that's released very shortly, which I'm super excited about. And I've just developed some educational kind of practices. So I know we only touched on 1 or 2 there, but there are 55 sets of practices that include breath and alignment and movement and connection. As we talked about, co-regulation and connection is really important with a safe system like yourself. Hope
Exactly.
this is why you had all of those, all the patients want to see you, because as in the scientific terms, as Porges talks about neuroception, our system knows. It tells us, it's like it's got an inner radar. It's a surveillance system, and it goes, I'm safe around this person. She's safe. She's warm. She has a warm face. She has a warm tone. So it's that instant soothing, and that's probably why they're asking for you, because you calm them. You co-regulate with them nicely. So going back to the cards, they're available, and they will link up to my library, where I will talk through each practice, what's going on in the system, how it works, and kind of practice that system, that technique with you. So it's not just cards.
Yeah.
Um,
I can't wait to share all that with my listeners, and I'll have links and everything too, because it's so important. I mean, these are it's a lifestyle. It's actually knowing who you are, regulating, like you said, your nervous system, and you're making such great headway. I mean, I'm so proud to be your friend and see how your journey goes and how everybody else can be helped because of you, and so I as far as where to find you, share where to find you.
okay, so you can check out my website, which is www.shalinicameron, SHALINICAMERON.com. So that's my website. I am taking a bit of a back step at the moment, only temporarily, from social media. I will be relaunching very soon with all the courses and the deck cards. So you can find me on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook.
Well, I thank you so much for sharing your story. It's very heartfelt and it's very dear to me just because, like I said, my nervous system on a daily basis, there's always things that we have to tackle, and it's how to regulate and your wisdom and the beautiful tools just for helping and healing the nervous system is so important. And I know so many of our listeners are going to feel the same about being seen, being inspired. Maybe they'll try some of these practices in their own lives and find things, to reach out for. If it's not you, then there's other people out there that are trying to help and reduce stress and ease traumas. Just even calming dental fears. So, for those listening, you can connect with her. I think it would be great for all her resources. And if you take anything from today, your body remembers. And everything that we do, your nervous system responds. Just be aware, think about your choices. Small rituals, I mean, they can really, even in the morning, finding even 5 minutes in the morning to yourself. I didn't go into it, but sometimes I'll journal or I'll get things out of
Hmm.
my head. There's other
Hmm.
things you can do. You can reclaim your safety. You can reclaim your joy. You can reclaim your presence. And yeah, so thank you so much for being on the show. And we will probably have another episode just to talk a little bit more later on in the year, to how how we can kind of keep this at more where people are happy, where happiness brings its hope and happiness. And so, everything will be, I'm just super excited to have.
You're so welcome, Hope. And if there's anything I can share with sort of five practices when you're in that dental chair, just kind of little things. But even if you take a grounding stone, so if you carry like a stone or a pebble, and you hold and anchor that as you go in, it's that connection of something of being in your body when it feels really, you can channel that into something quite heavy, which you can hold. And I would also say anything as well, if it's sound, if there's any sounds, you can take earplugs, or you can take something calming just to kind of drown that out. But from the perspective of the mouth, it's a very strong reflex. It's a place where we can hold a lot of armor and brace, and it can feel quite intrusive for a number of reasons, and we won't go into that. Hopefully that's for another time. But from a trauma perspective, there's a number of reasons that could be going on. So having a breath technique, even belly breathing just before, and having something to anchor and ground, and playing some music so you can focus and channel your awareness to that music, and consciously allowing your shoulders and almost to breathe into your belly can allow the system to feel safe so it can release a little bit and not hold on so tightly.
Even scents, even just smelling something familiar that's calming to you.
Hmm.
Um, and then I'll even add just going to your happy place. Like, I think my happy place is the beach.
Hmm.
So, maybe creating a mindset where, not to say that you're not really in that moment, but you're creating your own happiness where you're and that's where my stories always came in. It deflected from people with because they felt more normal. I would share my stories, and that's how Gums and Gossip came about, as people missed my
Amazing.
stories.
That is incredible. It really is. But you said it there, like visualization. you there is a power dynamic a little bit, isn't there? Because it's that restriction, and you've got people kind of above you, so there's a whole, from an environmental perspective, but it's not a case of you have to allow that process, because you can close the eyes. You could imagine you're on your favorite holiday. You could even, place something in, and having that sense of touch. I mean, if we need more people like you, Hope, around that fear response, because just a touch, just that voice is enough for the system to go, yeah, it's okay, and it can let go. And it's, I mean, we won't go into it, but there could be a number of reasons why, but if the memory is still kind of patterns from previous experiences, it's about retraining and repatterning that system as well, in that kind of freeze response.
Well, thank you so much. And everybody, thanks for tuning in to Gums and Gossip. If you love this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, share it with everybody who might need a little hope today and a little Shalini, So until next time, we'll keep smiling, keep breathing, and keep just being your amazing selves.